back in. It's going to be a great day of Jeep upgrades. I've been thinking about larger tires. My girlfriend wants to hang bikes off the back of the Jeep, and made me think, you know, that tailgate could use some strengthening. I picked up a Teraflex Alpha HD tire hinge. Goes on the tailgate, and this thing is real nice. I'm just driving around right now. I'm gonna find a nice spot where I can pull over and show you guys this thing. We'll go over it in a bit of detail, show it to you, you know, give you reasoning why this is potentially a good investment for you, and we'll do the install. I'll show you guys how to put it together and install that thing. Now, full disclosure, I got a sweet deal on this. It's secondhand. It's been used, of course, and it's still in great shape. I mean, there isn't really much that can go wrong with one of these. It's super sturdy. I mean, it's made out of aluminum, but it's this cast aluminum that is so heavy duty. It's super rigid. And the good thing about the aluminum is, you know, it's going to save you some weight. People are, you know, attaching these hinges on the back of their Jeeps, and it starts to add up, especially since people are putting these hinges on to accommodate a larger tire, and that alone is going to be heavy. So this thing being made out of aluminum and doing the job is amazing. Now that the train is gone, we can talk about this tire carrier. So this is a cast aluminum piece by Teraflex, and it's called Teraflex Alpha HD tire carrier. So I did buy this secondhand, but you know what? There isn't really much that could go wrong with this thing. And really the only reason why the guy was selling it is because for some reason he wanted 40s on his Jeep. And this particular product supports up to a 37-inch tire. Now the only thing that I think is missing, you know, Teraflex might have included some plugs here for the threads, and they typically give you a sticker that would go on the back of this, but I'm okay with that because eventually I might add some of their other products, like their high lift mount, their Rotopax mount, and that will occupy these threads, so that's cool with me. Now the reason why you might want to get one of these things is if you're going to add additional weight to the back of the Jeep. Now like I said, this will accommodate up to a 37-inch tire, and if you did that with a stock carrier, you would encounter some problems with the tailgate. Now it is a two-piece design and it's welded together, pretty thin sheet metal, and with all the weight sitting on the tire carrier, what will happen is the sheet metal might start to twist. And once that happens, the welds could pop. You know, you might encounter some sagging, and overall the hinge will fall apart. With this HD tire carrier, this whole aluminum piece bridges the gap between the hinge and the tire carrier, making it pretty much one piece. That rigidity will allow you to accommodate, you know, a larger tire. You can put a bike on the back of this thing, and you know, the extra weight isn't going to break anything. Okay, so that's a quick overview on the product. Let's go ahead and do the install. And you know what? I just finished it. It's pretty dang easy. Alright, first thing to do to get started on this install is we got to remove the spare tire. Got a 19mm socket. I'm going to undo these lugs. You're also going to need your key to remove this bottom one. Next we're going to use a T20 bit to remove these 4 Torx bolts. With the 4 Torx removed, we can remove the light assembly, and on the back there's a plug that you can disconnect. Watch out for the plastic clip at the bottom of the assembly. With the light disconnected, we can now shift our attention to removing the tire carrier. All it is, 8 13mm bolts. We're going to undo those right now. I have this rear view camera that I'm just going to quickly disconnect. Next, you're going to want to clean up the area. It's not often that you get behind here. Next, we're going to remove this tire bumper. Just pull it out, pretty simple. And then we have to remove these trim plates. Pry the sides and then pull forward. This longer piece, pull up here and then slide to the left. One more time. Okay, so now this is a pretty crucial step. Because we're going to be removing this hinge, there's not going to be anything supporting the tailgate on this side. So if we just left it with the bolts removed, this side would drop down. So what Teraflex recommends is we need to find something to wedge between the bumper and the bottom of the tailgate. This is simply going to prevent it from sagging down. Now I found this piece of wood. It measures 17mm in width. Your mileage may vary. I don't know what the tolerances are. I have a hard rock. This comes with a hard rock bumper. A stock bumper is probably going to be a little bit different, but I found from my application the 17mm piece of wood fits pretty snugly and will do the job. As an extra precaution, I'm going to just lay down some tape on the tub and on the tailgate. I'm just going to put a simple line just so I can watch that when I remove the bolts, make sure nothing shifts, and if it does, then I can line everything back up. Okay, now with the wood supporting the tailgate, we can go ahead and remove these 4 13mm bolts. It looks like Jeep paints these things after the hinges are installed, so you're going to notice a little bit of cracking. The paint's going to pretty much peel off as you're removing these bolts. Nothing to be worried about. Alright, now with these 13mm bolts removed, we can shift our focus to the tub of the Jeep, and we have to remove 3 T50 head bolts, and that's going to be for each hinge. And luckily for us, this nifty Jeep kit comes with a T50, and we can use that right now to remove these bolts. They're going to be pretty stiff. I'm sure there's Loctite on them. If you have a better setup, maybe use that instead of the Jeep kit, just to get a little more leverage. Now we repeat the process below. Alright, 6 bolts removed, hinges gone. With everything removed, another great time to clean up the area. Also, we've noticed nothing has moved. Alright. Keeping the area pretty clean, and if you're super OCD, you can go ahead and paint these. I don't know if it's really necessary, but I think it's going to be covered again anyways. Alright, with the original hinge removed, area cleaned up, we can grab the new Teraflex hinge and 2 of our original T50 Torx bolts. We're going to line this baby up and start the bolts with the outer holes here. When putting in these T50 bolts, we're using the originals, and we got to make sure to put some blue Loctite in them. Don't use red if you ever want to take these things back out. And when installing the bolts, we're just doing it snugly. We're not tightening this up at all because we need to fine tune the adjustment and the alignment on the whole hinge before we tighten everything. So just get these bolts in, make sure there's Loctite, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so using some Loctite, we've loosely installed our factory T50 bolts. Opened up the hinge, and I've also gone ahead and added some Loctite, and I've installed the inner bolts. And these are going to be installed super loosely. There's a plate inside the Jeep, and it's threaded. We want to make sure that is aligned to all 3 of the holes. If we just install the 1 bolt, there's a good chance that that plate could shift. And then when we go ahead and install these bolts, we're going to have a hard time. Get your blue Loctite. Again, keeping this super, super loose. Now with those 6 bolts loosely put in place, we can close the hinge. Lucky for us, Teraflex has included this cutout, and I've got a backup camera, so I'm going to feed that through. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our factory bolts, and we're just going to put it in this spot right here. And the reason why we're doing this is because before tightening down these bolts, we want to make sure that the hinge is in a very good spot. We need it to be positioned perfectly so that way all of these holes align to the tailgate. Okay, now with that in place, we can inspect each one. And everything seems very good. Now with everything aligned, we can tighten these 2 bolts down to 19 foot-pounds. Great. Now we have the hinge locked into place, and we can remove this 1 temporary bolt. With the bolt removed and the hinge opened up, we can now tighten these 4 bolts to 19 foot-pounds as well. Okay, we can close the hinge again. Alright, close the hinge. We're going to grab some Loctite and the 13mm bolts that Teraflex has provided for us. And we are going to thread them here, 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 here. I recommend doing this loosely first, because again there's a plate on the inner side of the tailgate. I want to make sure that's lined up because these two share a plate, and if it's misaligned, you're going to have a hard time threading in your bolts. With the Teraflex bolts in, we're going to tighten them down to 15 foot-pounds. Now we can go ahead and install our tire carrier. We're going to be using the stock one. Teraflex offers a beefier version of this, which will accommodate up to a 37-inch tire. We're not doing that right now, so we're going with our stock. So we're going to line this up and we're going to loosely install it with the factory bolts, and we're going to use some thread locking compound, again blue. Okay, those are in place. I'm just going to fish through my camera. You can also fish our brake light harness at the top. Alright, now we have to install these plates that are essentially going to be wedged between the tire carrier and the tailgate, and they look like this. We got two of them, and we're gonna first put the bottom one in, and it essentially goes like this. We're gonna reuse the factory bolts with some blue Loctite. Get those started. Next one at the top goes like this, and these are padded on the back so you don't have to worry about scratching your paint. Thread those guys in, finger tight. Alright, now we can go ahead and tighten all 8 of these 13mm bolts to 15 foot-pounds. With everything buttoned up, we can now remove a piece of wood. Swing the tailgate open for the first time. It actually almost feels like the gate opens a little bit further than I'm used to. Next up, we can reattach the brake light. That's simply going to feed through. We are going to clip it back in. And at the top, we've got the plug. Make sure it's fully seated. And on the back, have your T20 screws ready. Thread those in. And then we can get our T20 bit and tighten all 4 of these down. Alright, last thing to do, we're going to close the tailgate once again. And we got to mount up our tire. Grab our lug nuts. Tighten these down with your 19mm socket. And we are good to go. You can also see nothing sagged. We're looking good. Things on there. Thank you so much for checking out this video and riding along with me. I really think this is a quality product. Let me know in the comments below if this is something you'd pick up and put on the back of your Jeep. And please, if this is the first time you've checked out one of my videos, subscribe, because I'm going to have a ton more in the future. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.